1. Too many ads. It seems like every single thing in WWE these days has an advertisement attached to it. The ring mat used to be sacred, but now there's like 50 ads plastered onto it. It's become so absurd that they have started to put ads on tables and ladders and other weapons. Everything is sponsored by something and it feels like we're just watching one long advertisement. 2. It used to be cheap to be a WWE fan. But right now, with the new ESPN deal, if you're a fan in the US, in order to watch everything legally, you have to spend over $1,000 a year in subscriptions, alone just to enjoy the product. WWE Network used to be $10 a month for all of that. No wonder why so many people have stopped watching entirely or use alternative methods to watch the shows. 3. Celebrities have always been a part of wrestling, but recently WWE has been taking it over the edge. Most wrestling fans do not care to see these random celebrities on the show, and the worst of these culprits is Travis Scott, who ruined an entire WrestleMania main event. 4. WWE tickets have been out of control for a while, and it seems like they are just getting more expensive. For WrestleMania 42 tickets, front row seats will cost up to $70,000. It seems like watching wrestling now is preserved purely for the elites. 5. It seems like these days the WWE is more concerned with getting a viral moment rather than telling actual stories. It seems like WWE is more concerned with getting views on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. 6. The Street Profits made their entrance at WWE Clash in Paris in Borderlands-inspired gear. This was purely to promote the game. The same thing happened to the Viking Raiders at WrestleMania 41, where they came out as literal Clash of Clans characters just to promote the game. It seems like in the future, wrestlers will be booked solely on what they can promote and not based on merit, and this is just egregious. 7. TKO is a company that is in huge financial debt. According to their financial reports, they are in over $3 billion of debt, and of course to make up for this debt, they have to monetize absolutely everything in WWE. 8. WrestleMania was initially announced to be in New Orleans, but they changed it to the same location as WrestleMania 41, Las Vegas. They're not redoing it in Las Vegas for no reason, it's because it allows them to hit the same market that brought them loads of cash, and also because they got massive tax credits for having the event in Vegas at WrestleMania 41. Quite simply, it's not about the fans, it's about making dollars. 9. When you look at the current roster of contracted talent in WWE, there are a few names who 100% should not be there, like Tamina or Apollo Crews. What justifies these wrestlers being on the roster when extremely talented wrestlers with a lot of potential like Dakota Kai or Cora Jade were released? 10. WWE recently bought AAA and have basically invaded TNA. Wrestling is greatest when there is competition, and with WWE actively trying to destroy the competition and being successful at it, it leaves wrestling in a worse place and fans are basically held hostage by WWE. 11. This year, WWE made SummerSlam into 2 nights, and reports say that they have plans to split other PLEs into 2 nights. This is just overkill. 12. WWE's schedule used to have more live events, but they have cut down on that significantly. On the surface, this may seem like a good thing because wrestlers get more time to rest and recover, but ultimately, these live events helped wrestlers to develop their character and wrestling skills in front of a live crowd. Cody Rhodes even alluded to how the lack of live shows ultimately hurts up-and-coming wrestlers. 13. WWE are not taking care of backstage employees. Since TKO took WWE over, it's been reported that backstage WWE employees, like the people besides the wrestlers, have had their contract benefits reduced, even though they have been given heavier workloads. You would think that with TKO making record profits, they would take better care of their backstage workers. But no, that sort of stuff is not really that important. 14. It's no secret that Triple H has a massive ego. This has been a fact since he was still an active wrestler. He constantly wants to be the center of attention, and you can tell by the way he pushes himself front and center a lot of the time. 15. Triple H doesn't respect WWE fans. He basically said that he thinks that WWE fans should be mindless bots, just consuming WWE content without ever criticizing the product or asking any sensible questions to things that don't make sense. 16. Well, Triple H doesn't do this anymore, but nothing says a big you to wrestling fans more than bragging about how you set a financial record while serving an inferior product. 17. Triple H doesn't mind lying to fans, as seen as when he threw John Cena under the bus for being the one who requested Brock Lesnar to come back for his final run, but then Cena afterwards denied that. 18. Rhea Ripley herself said in WWE Unreal that she'd been feuding with Liv Morgan for way too long, and this is correct. At a certain point, WWE needs to let stories just die naturally, but they have a problem with recycling stories and having constant rematches. 19. The 5-match PLE structure is not enough. Triple H is probably going for the approach that less is more, but for the price that fans pay, they deserve more matches. Like seriously, 2025's Night of Champions didn't even feel like an actual Night of Champions, because under Vince, almost every title was defended on that night, but at this year's Night of Champions, literally only 2 championships got defended. 20. In a lot of cases in WWE, it seems like someone wins a championship just to disappear. Then they might have a defense or two sparsely separated and then just drop it to the next person. This is getting stale. 21. Do you remember the days when a Men's World Championship would change hands on a Smackdown or Raw? Well, besides Gunther winning the World Heavyweight Championship on a Raw in June, the last time happened prior to that was in 2021 when Big E won the WWE World Championship on Raw, and that was under Vince. Under Triple H, that rarely happens, and it takes away from the spontaneity of the show. 22. According to an article by Yahoo Sports, the amount of matches that have finished with a DQ has doubled from 5 to 10% in the last year. Go back another year and this figure has tripled, as 2023's rate of disqualifications was just 3%. So it's quite clear that under Triple H the disqualification rate has been steadily rising. 23. This one is kind of an extension of the last entry, too many screwy finishes, but this is finishes where it's not a disqualification, but there's some kind of tomfoolery to end the match, like a kick to the groin and the referee doesn't see what happens and counts to 3. Recently, WWE has been using this trope to end matches more frequently, and it's honestly lazy booking. 24. Back in the day, WWE used to take big risks on stars right out of the gate. For example, stars like Paige, Santino Marella, and Carlito all won a championship on their debut match, and even Brock Lesnar became the WWE champion after only 5 months on the main roster. These were all big booking risks that paid off. These days, WWE does not do this sort of thing anymore. The most legit person that they could have done this with is Braun Breaker, but that ship has sailed. The next possible person Triple H could do this with is Obafemi, but there's doubts that will happen. 25. Back in the day, wrestlers' entrance music were bangers. They were so good that you'd think the wrestler sang the song personally. These days, wrestlers' music is bland and generic. This fact got exposed at the Royal Rumble this year. When first hearing a wrestler's entrance song, a lot of wrestling fans were asking themselves, who is that? Def Rebel definitely needs to go. 26. Stage sets kind of suck. Back in the day, stage sets used to mean something, like the awesome specific pay-per-view stage sets or the Smackdown Fist. WWE did bring back a special setup for Clash in Paris, but this is very rare, because nowadays, a big LED board is all that fans get. It feels like the shows are not personalized. 27. How does this song make you feel? Back in the day, the opening intros of shows were so badass, but nowadays the opening intros don't have that vibe to them. 28. Back in the day, Titantron packages used to be cool. It would give you a mini highlight reel of a wrestler and make them look sick. These days, all we get are some fancy graphics and maybe a catchphrase or logo or two, which just gets boring after a while. 29. Back in the days, certain pay-per-views felt special because of the promotional material. For example, SummerSlam actually felt like summertime because they promoted it as such, with ads of wrestlers barbecuing, going to the beach, and more. This was also the case with other pay-per-views. Nowadays, it seems like a couple of poorly made graphics and boring ads are enough for WWE to promote to fans. It makes pay-per-views feel less special. 30. Do you remember the days of iconic wrestling t-shirts and merch? Well, those days are gone. It's not like WWE doesn't make good merch anymore, it's just that it's very expensive and the designs aren't as good as they used to be. You could also argue that back in the day, not everyone had merch made, but now literally everybody is getting merch. So WWE essentially saturated their own market because there's so many drops of new merch coming constantly. 31. Back in the day, championship belts used to have personality. They actually looked like there was a lot of effort put into designing them. There were different designs for men and women too. Nowadays, WWE just slaps a big logo on the belt and changes the color scheme a bit and calls it a day. It's obviously for marketing purposes, but this has undeniably sucked the aesthetic appeal out of titles. 32. Remember the days when it felt like Smackdown and Raw were genuinely at war with each other, and when a wrestler got randomly moved to the opposing brand, everybody was like WTF? Nowadays, that is not a thing, and the war type of feeling between the brands is gone. 33. Nowadays, WWE has a high production value, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it just feels too perfect. Wrestling thrives on the element of grittiness. That's part of why 2018 AEW and pre-PG era WWE was so badass. It felt like they were stepping onto a battlefield. But nowadays, WWE feels a little bit too polished. 34. Back in the day, WWE used to have crazy storylines, like basically all of the stuff in the Attitude Era, like Stone Cold Steve Austin and Booker T in a grocery store, or in the Ruthless Aggression Era with Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio fighting over the custody of Dominic Mysterio. These sort of things were so fun to watch and left you on the edge of your seat every week. Nowadays, storylines feel very sanitized to make sure not to offend anybody. 35. There was a time in wrestling where certain wrestlers truly ascended past the wrestling bubble and into the mainstream. Not that stars don't do these Hollywood appearances, but it seems like there's nobody who can genuinely break into the mainstream besides Roman Reigns. 36. Guaranteed money undoubtedly killed wrestlers' hunger to be the best they can be. Back in the day, wrestlers used to be paid based on the success of a pay-per-view or show, so that gave them incentive to actually do their jobs to the best of their ability. These days, wrestlers don't have that same pressure, so they don't try as hard. 37. Wrestlers don't look like wrestlers these days. Drew McIntyre even said it best.
85% of our guys don't look like they should be in WWE. Jesus, guys, get in the freaking gym.
Of course, roids getting out of wrestling was a good thing, but a lot of the current crop of superstars just look like regular people, and that makes them feel like less of an attraction. 38. Back in the day, it seemed like the majority of the roster had some sort of aura, but these days, not so much. They don't have undeniable swagger that is infectious, and when these auraless wrestlers try to aura farm, it comes across as goofy and desperate. The only superstar on the roster who has genuine aura is Roman Reigns. 39. Aura and character go hand in hand, but a wrestler could have no aura but still have character, and vice versa. Wrestlers used to have something distinguishable about them that made them stand out. Nowadays, it seems like everyone's gimmick or character is, I want to be the best. 40. Back in the day, heels used to be heels. They actually acted like bad people and did things that crossed the line. Nowadays, heels try so hard to be a heel that is loved. They try to be anti-heroes that get cheers from the crowd. Think of guys like Seth Rollins. That's why guys like Gunther are so appreciated in WWE, because they're actually acting like no-nonsense scumbags. 41. It is undoubtedly harder to be a babyface than a heel, but babyfaces these days in WWE feel a little bit too safe. Cody Rhodes is a perfect example because while he's WWE's biggest babyface, he kinda gets boring after a while. 42. Triple H said it himself that a lot of talent come from NXT to the main roster with phenomenal work ethic, but then along the line, they lose that hunger and they stop working so hard and become complacent. This is worrying for the next crop of WWE superstars. 43. Back in the day, most wrestlers on the card could cut a halfway decent promo. However, nowadays, besides the top stars, up-and-coming wrestlers have had a hard time with promos. 44. This has been a problem in wrestling in general for a while, especially on the indies, but it's slowly slipping into WWE. The no-selling epidemic. For example, when Seth Rollins buckle-bombed Penta, mind you, this is the same move that forced Sting to retire for years, Penta completely no-sold it and gave Rollins a Canadian destroyer. This is the type of spot that if it happened in AEW, people would crap all over it, but since it's WWE, this is awesome chance to justify it. 45. In Cena vs Cody's match at SummerSlam 2025, Cena hit Cody with 8 attitude adjustments and Cody still won. In what universe does that make sense? Not to mention Cody, who constantly spams his finisher in all of his matches. It's almost like the art of having a signature move has been forgotten. 46. Back in the day, we used to have actual banger tag teams like the Hardys, Dudley Boys, Edge and Christian, and the like. Nowadays, while there's still banger tag teams, it just all feels so lackluster. The tag teams in WWE at the moment don't hit as hard as they used to, and both sets of the men's tag team titles feel meaningless. 47. This famous picture of the 2008 WWE roster often goes viral because of how stacked the roster was. This was when they had World Championship caliber wrestlers in the mid-card. Nowadays, it just feels like the mid-card is filled with, well, legit mid-carders. 48. The last truly great faction that WWE had was the Bloodline, but the Bloodline was essentially a Vince McMahon creation. Under the Triple H era, there hasn't really been any top factions in WWE. 49. Back in the day, we used to have managers that would highlight wrestlers and cover all their weak spots. Nowadays, in wrestling, there's a lack of good managers. Really, Paul Heyman is the only good manager in WWE at the moment. A lot of wrestlers who can't particularly talk would benefit from having a good talking piece. 50. Back in the day, there used to be genuine comedy characters whose character was solely to make you laugh, kinda like the Hurricane or Santino Marella. Nowadays, the only true comedy wrestler of that ilk is R-Truth, and they try to get rid of him. There are some current wrestlers in WWE who do comedy, but they are not comedy wrestlers, they are wrestlers who do comedy. 51. The days of good old JR and Jerry Lawler on commentary were gold. Now, commentary isn't that bad, but there's a reason why Michael Cole has been a commentator in WWE for almost 30 years. He's a perfect employee, sometimes too perfect to the point that it's bland and predictable. Pat McAfee was a godsend because even though a lot of people don't like him, he actually brought some life and explosiveness into commentary and to Michael Cole himself. 52. There's no problem with using stars that are draws, but in WWE, it seems like there is an abundance of older talent that is pushed to the forefront. This is no shade to legends like John Cena, CM Punk, or Randy Orton, but when these legends are no longer able to wrestle in the next few years, who is truly going to take over that mantle? 53. With WrestlePalooza ended, many are considering it as the worst WWE pay-per-view of the year. Very lackluster matches, and with John Cena getting squashed, it left a very sour taste in fans' mouths. But the whole pay-per-view was indicative of a trend that has been going on for a while. 54. In the big year of 2025, women's matches on Raw, SmackDown, and even some pay-per-views go for less than 10 minutes, and a lot of the time, women don't get enough TV time to build stories, as seen with the terrible build-up to Evolution 25. Luckily, the pay-per-view wasn't bad, but the women really had to compensate for the lack of build-up. 55. It seems like women's wrestlers these days appeal to the Gooners too much. No shade to the women's wrestlers, but it feels more and more that they're catering to the thirsty wrestling fans to get over. Guess it's okay if they're also talented like Rhea Ripley, but then you get wrestlers who are not even talented getting over by virtue of showing their cheeks on social media. Prime example of this is a wrestler like Nikita Lyons. 56. There's an over-reliance on released WWE superstars on OnlyFans. This has been a growing phenomenon over the years. When a wrestler, majority of the time a women's wrestler, gets fired from WWE, they start on OnlyFans. Examples of this is Mandy Rose, Cora Jade, Blair Davenport, Matt Riddle, and more. This is a problem because these wrestlers don't really try to do a Drew McIntyre and build themselves up to eventually come back to WWE. They just go to the quickest way to make money possible, and this will probably never allow them back into WWE again. 57. In a study done by Cryptomaniacs, 7 out of the top 10 wrestlers who receive the most hate online are women, and when you look further down the list, it's even more shocking the way hate skews towards women. Wrestling fans are predominantly male, is the only explanation to this phenomenon, but even so, it's incredibly toxic, and if anything, it just hurts the women's division. 58. The introduction of the IC and US women's titles have kind of done more harm than good. They are a good idea in theory, but ultimately it has harmed the women's division because there are just too many titles to fight for. Having more titles isn't necessarily bad, it's just that there needs to be more TV time allotted to tell stories, but there is no more TV time. That's why when women win championships now, their stories often suck or they just disappear from TV completely. 59. The women's tag team titles have been a joke for the longest time. Whoever wins these titles barely has any defenses and they struggle to get on TV or PLEs. Not to mention the lack of depth in the women's tag team division. 60. Kayfabe is dead, and WWE Unreal was the show that put the final nail in the coffin of kayfabe. The art of pro wrestling was always built on the illusion of kayfabe, but now that the cat is not only out the bag, and the cat ran across the road and got hit by a car, the magic of the illusion is lost. 61. It feels weird to say, but there are just too many podcasts these days. This is not a slight to independent wrestling podcasters like CVV, but it's more aimed at WWE produced podcasts. For example, on the What Do You Want to Talk About podcast, he had an episode with Kevin Owens, and they were laughing and chatting when just a few months ago they had an intense feud and an absolutely brutal bloody match. Now they were laughing with each other. For those that don't think this is a big deal, just imagine peak John Cena as WWE champion sitting down laughing with Randy Orton on a WWE produced show a few months after their feud. Would you still be sold on the story that was told? 62. AEW was meant to be competition to WWE, and for a while, they were, and because of that, WWE were forced to improve. But now that AEW's viewership and crowds continue to get smaller, it seems like WWE's incentive is not to put on a show that's better than AEW, but more to satiate their own pockets. 63. In the big year of 2025, WWE is still trying to counterbook AEW, like them booking Evolution 2 at the same time as All In Texas, and also WrestlePalooza being booked against AEW's All Out. AEW even had to move All Out to an earlier time because of this. This is not a coincidence, because WWE knows exactly what they're doing. But at the moment, it's kind of pointless for WWE to do this, because at the end of the day, it just takes viewers away from themselves. 64. WWE just announced that WrestleMania 43 will take place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia in 2027. It will be the first time the event, which has become a cultural phenomenon, will be staged outside of America. It's not because of virtuous reasons that WWE are going to Saudi Arabia. Yet again, it's just another money grab. 65. WWE has evidently shown that they don't care and they only care about lining their pockets. It's been a money grab from the start, and it's just going to continue to be an even bigger money grab, as from 2026, 3 PLEs per year will be held in Saudi Arabia. 66. You think that people paying big money to go to WWE shows would be more enthusiastic or try to get their money's worth at a show by being more loud, but there have been many instances where crowds are just dead. To get the most electric crowds these days, WWE has to go overseas. 67. Seeing Rhea Ripley have a horde of fans mob her to the point that she couldn't even get into her Uber is indicative of how some fans have zero concept of personal space. 68. A few years ago, Daniel Bryan, the Planet's champion, said that fans are fickle. And he was completely right, and it seems like it's getting worse and worse as time goes on. Fans easily forget stuff, and they will beg for one thing and then once it happens, immediately turn on it, or completely forget about it. 69. Most wrestling fans are cool, but there's a certain portion of wrestling fans who think their promotions are the end all and be all of professional wrestling. Sure, AEW diehards are more obnoxious, but WWE diehards can be just as obnoxious, and this just ruins the fan experience from the perspective of someone in the internet wrestling community. 70. Dirt sheets are crucial in the ecosystem of wrestling, but a lot of these are not legit and they put out fake news, and this is detrimental to the wrestlers and the industry as a whole. One of the biggest purveyors of fake news is David Meltzer, and sure, he gets a lot of stuff right about WWE, but he also gets a lot of stuff wrong, and this just creates a toxic environment for all parties involved. 71. John Cena's heel turn and lost run has been especially butchered by Triple H. First of all, the heel turn happened about 10 years too late. The storylines during his heel turn were quite frankly not very good, and every week he was cutting the same "you people" promo. When he tried to act bad, it just came off as forced, and then magically one day, he turned back into a babyface, which is just lazy booking. John Cena himself would tell you that his heel turn sucked. 72. The Rock is not currently in WWE, but the influence he has over WWE is astounding. He could simply walk back into the WWE at any time and insert himself into any storyline for the better or worse. For the better, like how he did in the build-up to WrestleMania 40, or for the worse with the whole John Cena storyline. What makes this all so frustrating is more of the fact that he constantly lies to fans and sugarcoats things. In a couple of years, The Rock may have even more influence in WWE, purely because of name alone, but his ego is even bigger than Triple H, so he will inevitably run the company into the ground. 73. Now, Cody Rhodes is the MVP of WWE in his own right, but after his story finished at WrestleMania 40 in one of the best builds in WrestleMania history, his appeal has kind of fizzled out. He's still over as a rover, but he feels too squeaky clean, almost like he's the perfect corporate face for the corporate era of WWE. 74. Roman Reigns is undoubtedly the biggest star in WWE, but the way he's been a part-time wrestler is honestly so upsetting. To put it into perspective, Roman Reigns has wrestled 5 times in 2025 and 6 times in 2024. Under Vince McMahon, Roman Reigns wrestled more, but ever since Triple H took over, Roman has only wrestled a few times a year. He constantly gets written off TV just to return, to get written off TV just to return, and it's just going too far. 75. This part-timer thing also goes for a person like Brock Lesnar. Like, he appeared at SummerSlam just to literally disappear and return a month later. Brock has always been booked like this, but how can fans truly get invested with the stop-start booking? 76. We need to talk about the Yeet Man Jey Uso. In theory, he's where he's supposed to be. He's over as hell with the fans, he's over with his yeet catchphrase, he's selling crazy merch, and he's got a crazy awesome entrance. But once that music stops and the bell rings, his credibility goes out the window. He's shown time and time again that when he gets in the ring by himself, it's just fuel to change the channel. 77. The bloodline is getting ridiculous. It seems like Samoans/Tongans are spawning into WWE at every turn. Even when Tola Tonga debuted, Michael Cole messed up with the names and completely butchered the call. You know it's a problem when even the commentators are getting confused. 78. The R-Truth situation is honestly one of the most baffling in recent WWE history. So he was over, got fired, just to get rehired, then to turn heel, just to switch back to being a babyface, and then be forgotten. And the worst part is that nobody's really saying anything about it. The WWE knows how fickle their fans are, and this is why they've booked him so poorly since his return. 79. We need to talk about Mr. Seth Rollins, and the Vision faction thing. While it's a cool idea and concept, the execution and chemistry has not been all the way there. It's like they're trying to recreate the Bloodline storyline, but it's just not working. 80. With one promo, Karrion Kross shook the wrestling world. Crowds started chanting his name, and his merch was flying off the shelves. But WWE has a history of burying talent who get themselves over, and it happened with Kross. Triple H let his big ego get in the way, and he did not utilize Kross properly. They didn't treat him well in contract negotiations, thus releasing him from the company. The whole situation is just bizarre. 81. LA Knight has been completely wasted by Triple H. By now, he should have very well been at least a one-time World Heavyweight Champion. He's been over for years, and he's one of the few guys on the roster with an amazing physique, can actually talk, and is decent in the ring, but whenever it's been time to pull the trigger on him, Triple H doesn't do it. 82. Drew McIntyre's over, but if you look at his results, he's booked like a jobber to the stars. Not a jobber, but a jobber to the stars. It's a shame because he's one of the best talents that WWE has. 83. The New Day had one of the most shocking heel turns in WWE when they turned on Big E, and their storyline had a lot of juice, but Triple H seemingly dropped the ball, and even though they still appear on TV from time to time, they are kind of ice cold. 84. At the time of the recording of this video, Bayley is slowly in the process of becoming heel, but her booking has been abysmal considering how much she's done for the company. For example, how she was left off of WrestleMania at the last second despite being scheduled for a match. Honestly, she'd do better in AEW. 85. In NXT, Carmelo Hayes was a star and he looked like he could become a big deal in WWE, but it seems like Triple H's booking of him has made him completely stale. 86. The Wyatt Sicks are a tribute group to Bray Wyatt, but they are not working, partially due to booking. Sure, they have cool aesthetics, but ultimately they aren't over. This was seen when they retained the tag team titles at SummerSlam 2025, and the crowd was mainly silent, disappointed. And that brings us to 87, Aleister Black. Aleister Black has the ability to get over, but it's painfully obvious that just like with the Wyatt Sicks, Triple H has an inability to properly book spooky characters. That's part of the reason why Aleister Black and the Wyatt Sicks have not gotten over. 88. AJ Styles is one of the biggest stars in WWE, but he hasn't been booked very well recently under Triple H. This could be due to his age, but he has so much more to give to the company. 89. Iyo Sky is one of the most over women's wrestlers in WWE today, but whenever she's booked as women's champion, she kinda just becomes a side character in her own storylines, and she barely defends her belt. This is just a waste of Iyo. And this brings us to 90. Julia's booking since she won the United States Women's Championship has been abysmal. She has been champion for almost 3 months, but only has had 2 title defenses. It's like once she got her moment, Triple H completely forgot about her. 91. Recently, Stephanie McMahon advertised a VPN service on her podcast, telling fans that they could use one to avoid paying for WWE live events. You know it's an issue when they're selling you a problem and then they start selling you the solution. 92. WWE superstars are even becoming aware that the prices of WWE are getting too high, as seen with the video of Randy Orton cringing at the fact that a fan paid over $30,000 for seats. 93. AJ Lee has made a long-awaited return to WWE, but a few days before she re-debuted, an official WWE account leaked that she was going to be returning. Of course, this was sort of some AI mishap, but it just shows that surprises can't be kept secret in WWE anymore, because sometimes even AI will spoil it for you. 94. Despite Triple H recently being exposed for not being as good as we all thought he was, he's ironically the last hope for WWE, because if not him, then who? Hopefully he lives very long, but if he were to die tomorrow, what would happen to WWE in the hands of TKO? They will probably put someone even worse in charge of creative, and once the company's value has tanked, sell it off to Saudi Arabia for big money. Once that happens, we're all f***. 95. Vince McMahon is without a doubt a despicable human being, but without him, it seems like WWE has truly lost its identity. Though Vince McMahon's booking was hit and miss throughout the years, it was mostly hits, and honestly, he's actually a better booker than Triple H, in the sense that Vince McMahon knew how to create stars, and Triple H doesn't. 96. WWE was in bad shape before Triple H took over, and when he did take over, he did so well that many fans dubbed it the Renaissance era, but all good things come to an end. This new era is now the commercial era. 97. This one goes beyond words, because it's very hard to describe the state that WWE is in right now, but it just feels soulless. 98. The worst part of this all is that it seems like everything is just going to get worse, with everything that's going on with TKO, Saudi Arabia, Triple H, and more. It seems like there'll never be any redemption for WWE. 99. It's just not the product we fell in love with anymore. The game's gone. I'll leave it at that.